Chapter 29. Xiao Wan, Dr. Skullcracker. The door to the murder by midnight scenario closed with a click, and the crisp sound was like a shackle that tightened itself around the group of medical students' hearts. He-san, based on your previous experience, what do you think our best course of action is? Find the exit as soon as possible. After locking the door, Chen Ge immediately gave Xiao Wan a call to tell her to meet him in the props room. Boss, what's the hurry? The visitors are already inside the building, aren't they? Xu Wan, with her dead person makeup and the ghost bride's attire from the Ming-Hun setting, was quite scary running about the building. I've built a new scenario on the 3rd floor. It's called Murder by Midnight. The group of medical students should be the perfect test subjects for the new scenario. Chen Ge pushed open the door and used the black phone to search for the things that he needed. But shouldn't the new scenario be inspected by the park management first before it can be used? Xu Wan followed after him, holding the traditional skirt above her ankles lest she tripped on it. Boss, what are you looking for anyway? The uniform that I personally made for you. Uniform? At the deepest corner of the room, Chen Ge spotted a familiar wooden box. He did not expect this box that had once housed the doll, and the black phone would suddenly materialize in the room. Chen Ge walked to the box and peered in. Sitting at the bottom were a weird-looking hammer, a blood-soaked robe, and a yellowed missing person notice. Found it. Chen Ge pulled the robe up. Surprisingly, the robe that looked like a normal doctor's garb was incredibly heavy. That was probably due to the iron chains that were sewn into the fabric. The chains were carved with human faces in various degrees of torment. Boss, this is the uniform you made for me? Xu Wan involuntarily took several steps back because she could smell the blood that seemed to radiate from the outfit. Can I not wear it? Extras at Haunted House are actors, Xiao Wan. Think of the lessons your teachers at drama school once taught you. An actor has to be able to familiarize themselves with any and all roles. Chen Ge spread the robe out, and a faux human skin mask fell out from between the folds. Chen Ge also did not know such a thing came with the outfit. He bent over to pick it up, and with just a quick glance, he shivered with chills. The mask was made from parts of male faces sewn together. It was rough-looking, but that only added to its scare factor. Boss, don't tell me I have to wear that as well. Xu Wan had already retreated to the door. Just try it on, please. I want to see how it looks as a whole. I'll be the ghost next time, okay? Pretty please, Chen Ge begged, but his tone sounded like the devil in fairy tales luring common man to sin. Fine. I'll try it on. Xu Wan finally relented. After accepting the skin mask and the garb, she took off the ghost bride attire in front of Chen Ge and changed into her new uniform. She did not seem to mind that Chen Ge was standing right there. Boss, honestly, your definition of uniform might need to be updated. The moment Xu Wan curled the chains around her body and put on the blood-soaked garb and the skin mask, a subtle change seemed to occur to her entire personality. A sense of cruelty, madness, and wickedness seemed to come over her. Not bad. Chen Ge did not dare let Xu Wan near the mirror, afraid that she might scare herself. Come, carry this with you. Chen Ge grabbed the weird-looking hammer from the box. The hammer was about 40 centimeters long. Its handle looked like a human spine. At the end, there was a hook that could connect it to the chain inside the robe, and on both sides of the hammerhead, there were needles used for bloodletting. It's hollow, so not heavy, but if you feel it's too troublesome to run with it, you can drag it across the floor. Xu Wan had already surrendered to Chen Ge's weird ideas. All she did was nod and accepted the hammer. Place your phone inside your outer pocket and make sure your earpiece is working. Keep the channel open, and if there are no questions, it's time for us to start. Us? Boss, you're entering the scenario as well? Xu Wan turned to glance at Chen Ge. Her mellifluous voice coming out of the skin mask had a particularly chilling effect. Of course. Come on, let's get a move on. The visitors are probably bored waiting for us. Chen Ge had Xu Wan enter the murder by midnight scenario while he returned to the main control room. In just several minutes, he found the shadows of the 7 students on screen. Those 7 were bigger cowards than Gao Ru Shui. Judging from the expressions on their faces, it was clear that they were nervous. After so long, They're still wandering around the entrance? Looks like I'll need to give them a little push. Chen Ge first switched the music to Black Friday before calling Xu Wan. Xiaowan, this new scenario is huge. It not only involves the third floor, but also parts of the first and second floor. There are staircases at the left and right end of the scenario, so don't wander about aimlessly or you'll get lost. Now, listen to my orders carefully. Understood. After ending communication with Xu Wan, Chen Ge applied some makeup to himself before entering the murder by midnight scenario through the workers' passageway. With the black phone, he could control the more than 10 props and traps around the set freely. With this little convenience alone, the playability of Murder by Midnight was far greater than Ming Hun and Night of the Living Dead. In the darkened floor, the bathtub in one of the rooms was pushed aside. After Chen Ge crawled out from it, he returned everything back to its original state. Xiaowan, they're probably around room 207. You go stand by at the left staircase and await my next order. After that, Chen Ge let his eyes get used to the darkness before he used the right staircase to get up to the third floor. The group of medical students still had no idea that danger was approaching. They were still looking through the random props carefully, hoping to discover some useful clues. Other than the general dimness and low temperature, this haunted house doesn't seem that scary. Are we acting a bit too cautiously? Monkey was the smallest and chattiest of the group. Brother Feng, I think we should split into 2 groups. That way the search will go much faster. The progress will be too slow if we continue to stick together like this. The tall youth was the Brother Feng whom Monkey referred to. After realizing all of their preparation had been nothing but a waste after entering the Murder by Midnight scenario, he was admittedly a bit unsettled. However, as time passed, he slowly realized the place was not as scary as he imagined. That's not a bad idea. All right then, Monkey and Lao Song, the 2 of you take the 2 girls with you as you look through the rooms on the left. The 3 of us will search the rooms on the right. We should have done that a long time ago. I don't understand, what are you guys acting so scared for? This place is like a park compared to our school's morgue. The one who spoke up was a girl, one of the few who had her hair dyed among the group. Different from Gao Ru Shui, she had a little makeup on her face, and she looked more like an adult than a student. Sister Hui, Brother Feng, we mustn't let our guard down. I still think we should stick together. He-san hid among the crowd with a perpetual pout. The boss of this haunted house cannot be understood with normal logic. None of you have seen his live stream, but he's a madman with absolutely no regard for his life. Chapter 30. The 8th person. He-san tried his best to convince them, but his seniors were unfazed. They all believed that He-san was exaggerating to hide his cowardice. After all, seeing is believing. They had been inside the haunted house for a few minutes already, and there was nothing particularly scary about the place. Yet. Xiao-san, if you're that afraid, you can hide behind your big sister. The girl called Sister Hui took the front line and walked into the room next to them alone. All the decor is the same. Staying in bed watching crime drama would have been more interesting. Then we'll separate according to the grouping mentioned earlier. Monkey chased after Sister Hui, adding, "Let's find that exit soon. I'm getting bored." Lao Song and a quiet girl by the name of Shi Ling also made to follow, leaving He-san, Brother Feng, and Lao Zhao in the corridor. Honestly, I'm quite disappointed. Lao Zhao was a rotund fellow, with skin that was fairer than most girls. He was physically unhealthy to the point where he would start to sweat after taking few steps. Save your breath and let's start moving. With a wave, Brother Feng moved forward with Lao Zhao following behind. He-san was soon left all alone in the corridor. He was the only one who maintained a state of high alert. Something bad is bound to happen. After taking 2 steps, he stopped. Wait. The background music seems to have changed, but why does it sound so familiar? Before he could focus on the sound, a crisp sound entered his ears. He tried to focus on it, but it quickly disappeared. The source of the sound seemed to come from further down the corridor. Someone is chasing after us? He-san did not dare stay to find out, and hurried to catch up to his seniors. Black Friday marked the real beginning of the Murder by Midnight scenario. The light in the space dimmed. The stuff that littered the corridors started to move on its own, and the sound of clinking chains came up from the staircases. "I found something." Sister Hui, who was in front, walked out of a room with a rag doll in her hand. "Look at this. This doll was sitting right in the middle of the room." "Senior, please don't randomly move the stuff in the haunted house. Last time the trap was activated after we moved the coffin." He-san was relaying his experience, but no one paid him any attention. Ignored by all, he could only stand quietly at the outermost circle of the group, watching his senior walk down the figurative and literal dark path. There has to be something important about this doll. Could it be some kind of clue that it was sitting in the middle of the room? Monkey held the doll up to the dim light. The doll looked like a little girl about 5 or 6 years old. She had no eyes, and her body was burnt. No eyes should represent darkness, and the burnt body represents the fire of hell? Or could it be murder by arson? Brother Feng pressed the doll with his hand. "There's something other than cotton inside. It's something solid. Open it and see." Monkey pulled down the zipper that was on the back of the doll. The doll was filled with shredded paper. He took out a random piece, and the handwriting was scrawled and difficult to read, not unlike the handwriting of a child. "What does it say?" Monkey, who was the only one who had read the paper, had his face overcast with gloom. He placed the paper in his palm and showed it to the group. There were only 6 words on it. "All of you have to die." All the pieces say the same thing. How deep is the hatred to do something like this? "Quickly put it back. It's making me uncomfortable." Ling, who had been quiet, seemed to be creeped out by the doll. She merely glanced at it before retreating several steps back. "It's just a doll. Nothing to be afraid of. Probably just a decoration used by the haunted house." Monkey pushed the paper back into the doll's body and flung the doll to the side, allowing it to fall to a random corner of the corridor. "Let's move on to the next room." However, the quiver in his voice betrayed the anxiety that he was feeling within. "Wait a minute." Xiao Hui raised her left hand, which was holding a crumpled piece of paper. "Other than the doll, I also found this in the room earlier. Take a look. I believe it's a diary entry of some sort." "Let me see." Lao Zhao grabbed the piece of paper and started to read. "I feel like there's another person hiding in the house. I wonder if he is hiding under the bed or inside the cupboard. I've told this to Mommy, Daddy, and my big sister, but they were too concerned with some other thing to pay me any attention. When the night fell, Daddy inspected all the doors and windows to make sure they were all locked before going to bed. I don't know why they're so afraid of the things outside when there's a person hiding inside the house." "Fuck! What is this?" Lao Zhao stopped reading halfway and shoved the paper back to Xiao Hui. "This is all designed to disturb us. We mustn't fall for the trap. I'm impressed by the attention to detail, but alas, that won't be enough to scare me." Xiao Hui placed the paper back where she found it before the group moved on to the next room. None of them realized the doll that they dropped on the floor suddenly twitched. "Let's stop wasting time and find the exit." After searching 5 rooms, they came up with nothing and ended at the rightmost end of the corridor. "This floor is huge. There wouldn't be enough time for us to finish searching it within the time limit, so I feel like the chances of the exit being on the 3rd floor are slim. If I were the haunted house proprietor, I wouldn't have set up the entrance and the exit on the same floor," Brother Feng analyzed logically. "Are we going to split into groups again?" "No. If we're not on the same floor, it'll just make it easier for us to be divided and conquered," He-san added, but the group decided in unison to ignore him. "We've been in here for more than 10 minutes already, but nothing has happened. Yes, the atmosphere is not bad, but it's still far from being scary. I agree to separate into groups." Lao Zhao wiped the sweat from his forehead before continuing. "Don't forget our real purpose here. We have to leave the exit within the designated time to gain back the face that our university has lost." "You're right. We'll split up according to the original plan." Just as the discussion was about to be concluded, He-san finally stepped forth to say, "Will you guys please listen to me?" He walked to the middle of the group and pointed down the corridor. "Starting from a few minutes ago, I've been hearing some weird sound coming from the staircase. Something is following behind us." With this reminder from He-san, the group did start to notice the sound of the chains that was getting clearer and clearer. The boss already said this scenario is called murder by midnight, so in that case there has to be a murderer. Lao Zhao patted He San on his shoulder, saying, "Don't overthink it. The murderer has to be a character portrayed by the haunted house worker, and since it's only an actor, what is there to be afraid of? Am I right?" The group laughed, thinking He San was being overly sensitive. "Don't worry. Your seniors are here to protect you. Don't be afraid." Lao Zhao pulled out his phone, adding, "By the way, didn't we decide to shoot a short video inside the haunted house and post it on the boss's account page to make fun of him? I feel like this location is not bad. Everyone, remember to look at the camera." He tilted the camera around to look for an angle that could capture everyone. His eyes glanced at the screen, and when he was about to say something, an indescribable chill crawled up from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. His fat body shook, and he threw his phone away with a trembling hand. "Fatty, have you lost your mind? What are you doing? You scared me!" Lao Zhao did not speak. His eyes scanned everyone there, and with scattering teeth he said, "Count it yourself, including me. Why are there 8 of us?" Chapter 31. Who is he? 8? Stop kidding. Lao Zhao's words made everyone's heart skip a beat. The light in the murder by midnight scenario was exceptionally weak. The group looked at each other, their bodies frozen. "Where's the 8th person?" "Stop panicking," Brother Feng ordered as he pulled out his phone. As he was about to turn it on, the sound of chains from the other end of the corridor suddenly turned rapid. "Someone is coming!" As Brother Feng unlocked his phone, a bloodied monster turned the corner. The timing was perfect, as if the monster already knew where they were. "What is that?" Underneath the blood-soaked doctor's coat were chains that dragged themselves across the floor. The monster's head was lowered, and the hammer in his hand was dripping with blood. Everyone started to worry, and only Brother Feng managed to keep his cool. Ignoring Chen Ge's earlier warning, he turned on the flashlight inside the haunted house. A ray of light shot through the long corridor, shining on the monster. The light attracted the monster's attention, who turned his head and glared at them through the curtain of long hair. At that moment, the group of medical students had their hairs stand on end. The monster had a face that was sewn together with the features of several males, the stitches on the mask observable even through the distance. The monster seemed to be ultra-sensitive to light because when the light hit him, he went berserk and started to charge down the corridor, waving the hammer crazily in the air. The chains knocked into the walls as the heavy footsteps echoed across the thin corridor. As the madman approached, it was unknown who was the first to move, but it created a domino effect, and the group of students scattered to run for their lives. Some hid inside the nearest room, others rushed down the stairs to hide on the second floor, while some shot down directly to the first floor. Everyone was spooked by the sudden appearance of the monster, and the approaching footsteps and clinking chains deeply unsettled them. Fight or flight was a natural human response to threats, and when the brain sensed this was a fight that they could not win, they naturally chose to escape and run. Xiao Hui was the one closest to the stairs. When the monster rushed at them, she was a bit at a loss, and the man beside her suddenly turned and ran down the stairs. Her brain frizzled by fear, she did not think twice and ran after the man. At the time, her instinct was merely to run away from the monster. The phone was left in a forsaken corner. The calmness of the group of students was completely shattered, and screams tore through the corridor. The group dispersed like a flock of spooked chickens. When Xiao Hui followed the man before her to the first floor, the screaming from the third floor had not ceased. Then came a halting tempo to the sound of the chains, which sounded like the monster was coming down the stairs. Xiao Hui increased her pace and did not dare turn back. She kept close to the man in front of her, afraid that she might be left stranded. The creepy music and endless screams caused fear to breed within Xiao Hui's heart. The bigger the fear, the greater the need for company. She chased after the shadow before her like her life depended on it. The shadow had become a rock for her to rely on inside the darkened haunted house. No matter what happens, at least we'll be able to look after each other. Xiao Hui did not dare imagine what would happen if she was abandoned all alone inside the haunted house. To prevent that from happening, she picked up pace again and reached out to grab the shirt of the person in front of her. The sound of chains drew closer. Xiao Hui was led by the person to the first floor, where he ran into one of the rooms to hide. A dead end? Xiao Hui paused at the door while she saw the man jumped into the only furniture in the room, a cupboard to hide. At this juncture, Xiao Hui only had two options left: run on her own, or hide inside the cupboard alongside the man. The sound of the chains dragging on the floor came closer, and she decided on the latter option. Once the cupboard door was closed, it seemed like she had entered a different world, one that was filled with darkness and silence. The only thing that made her feel safe was at least she had a companion with her. The makeup on her face had already been ruined. Holding her breath, Xiao Hui leaned toward the crack to try to take a look outside. She saw the chains glint in the dark. The doctor stopped at the door. He used the hammer to knock on the door before walking into the room. Xiao Hui's heart was racing at an impossible pace. She bit on her finger and shrank deeper into the cupboard, her heart praying softly, "Please don't come any closer. Please don't come any closer." Her prayers were answered because the doctor only took a look around before he left. Xiao Hui sighed in relief and lightly shook the arm of the person beside her. "The monster doesn't seem to have spotted us. We'll wait for a little longer, and then we'll go meet up with the rest." Only Xiao Hui's voice could be heard echoing inside the cramped cupboard. She waited for a response, but there was no answer. She frowned, feeling something was wrong as she turned to look at the man. The man hiding inside the cupboard with her had an average frame, neither thin nor fat. Definitely not Monkey or Lao Zhao. Brother Feng is taller than this, and He San is smaller. Xiao Hui called out cautiously, "Lao Song?" There was still no answer. Xiao Hui's heart cracked with tension. Wait a minute. Lao Zhao did say there was an eighth member among us. Xiao Hui's blood started to chill, and her breath caught in her throat. Xiao Hui slowly pulled out the phone in her pocket. She turned her phone to the side, its cold light flashing. In the sealed compartment, a deathly white and completely unfamiliar face was staring right back at her. The phone slipped from her fingers, and after 2 seconds of absolute silence, an ear-splitting scream escaped from within the cupboard. Xiao Hui scooted back in an attempt to escape, but the cupboard was only so big. In her desperation, the back of her head knocked against the cupboard wall, and perhaps from the pain or perhaps due to the shock, this fashionable girl collapsed to the floor of the cupboard with her head lolling to the side, appearing as if she was about to die in a few minutes. "Didn't I already warn you guys not to use your phones inside my haunted house?" Chen Ge pushed the cupboard door open, picked up the phone from inside the cupboard, and shoved it inside Xiao Hui's pocket. Then he used his own to contact Shu Wan. "Xiao Wan, temporarily make them stay away from the first floor." After giving the order, he carried Xiao Hui into the bathroom. He opened the trap door in the bathtub and carried Xiao Hui out of the scenario using the workers' passageway. We're definitely lacking in physical help. After placing a piece of warm towel on Xiao Hui's forehead, Chen Ge returned to the scenario. 1 down, 6 to go. Chen Ge closed the passageway and called Shu Wan on her phone. "Xiao Wan, where are you now?" "There's someone hiding on the second floor in the first room on the left from the staircase. I'll go to force him out, and you'll be able to ambush him with a surprise from the right exit." "Xiao Wan, you've been corrupted." "Boss, you have no right to say that. This is all thanks to you." Chapter 32. Dolls, Dolls, Dolls. Monkey was stranded alone on the second floor, his eyes and ears staying alert to his surroundings. He had himself cooped up in the corner where he could get a good view of the staircase, so no matter which direction the murderer came from, he would be able to escape as fast as possible. The lights in the scenario seemed to have gotten dimmer, and the eerie music toyed with his heart. Monkey pinched himself to focus and took a deep breath. As a medical student, he knew pain and oxygen were the best elements to make one calm down rapidly. Monkey went through what happened earlier in his mind. The timing of the monster's appearance is just too weird. He rushed at us right after Lao Zhao pointed out there was an eighth character hidden among us. That is too much of a coincidence. Everyone lost their cool when Lao Zhao made that stupid discovery. If Brother Feng was allowed to use his phone and looked through us carefully, the eighth person would have been readily exposed. That was our first mistake. After the monster rushed at us, if we stood our ground and didn't rush off like a bunch of headless chicken, we would have been fine. That was our second mistake. Monkey sighed slightly. Yes, the monster rushing at us was scary, but it should not have been enough to make us all run off like that. It all started when that first person ran. His action ruined our thoughts, so if I'm not mistaken, that first runner was the 8th person. Earlier, I heard Xiao Hui's scream. She was the second to run and was closest to the mystery man, so this supports my hypothesis. Monkey laughed, self-deprecatingly. Then again, guessing it right and not being scared were two different things. After all, being stranded all alone in this creepy haunted house did still cause chills to rise up his spine. The monster and the 8th person were working together, using psychological pressure to instill fear in us. If I'm not mistaken, their plan has always been to split us apart and then take us down one by one. Does the proprietor need to rely on such wicked psychological techniques just to scare someone? Monkey was a brilliant student, but he was as big a coward as he san. In school, he did not dare enter the morgue unless accompanied. I need to relay this information to Brother Feng and the others as soon as possible. He took out his phone to call Brother Feng, and when he saw the stuff that was reflected in the shining surface of his phone, he trembled all over. Why is this rag doll sitting on the stairs? Didn't I leave it on the 3rd floor earlier? Monkey did not dare utilize the flashlight function, lest he attracted the unwanted attention of the monster. He turned his phone display toward the wall, and he saw a tattered rag doll was lying against it. Did someone accidentally kick it downstairs in the earlier commotion? This was the only valid explanation Monkey could come up with. The rag doll was filled with paper pieces and not mechanical parts, so it could not have been remote-controlled. It's quite scary lying there like that. Other than its slightly worn state, there was not anything particularly scary about the doll, but as Monkey stared at it, he had this suspicious feeling that it was alive. Monkey could not understand it either, but for some reason he saw a young girl looking pleadingly at him when he looked at the doll. I must be hallucinating. Either way, I have to leave this haunted house as soon as possible if I want to keep my sanity. Monkey called Brother Feng, and a ringing sound came from the 3rd floor. He's still up on the 3rd floor? Or did he lose his phone like Lao Zhao did? The ringing sound of the phone, weirdly enough, made the haunted house feel creepier. Monkey did not hang up, but shoved his phone into his pocket and slowly climbed up the stairs to the 3rd floor. Hiding on the staircase, he looked down the corridor, and as he expected, Brother Feng's phone was left ringing on the floor. Both Brother Feng and Lao Zhao have left their phones. I'll have to try someone else. Standing alone at the 3rd floor staircase, watching the doors on either side of the corridor swing open and shut due to the draft, Monkey was feeling weak in his knees. He scrolled down his contact list rapidly to look for other people's contact number when his phone vibrated and rang. Fuck! What now? It was a call from one of the group members. Shi Ling? Why did she call me? Or is she also stranded alone like I am? Like most young men, Monkey puffed his chest up with courage when he was interacting with a member of the opposite sex. Shi Ling, did you get lost from everyone else? Where are you now? I'll come get you. I'm trapped inside a room on the 3rd floor. I didn't catch the room number, but please come and get me. This haunted house is all sorts of wrong. Shi Ling was normally a quiet and reserved girl. To be able to make her talk in such a drastic and hurried tone, something traumatic must have happened to her. She sounded like she was on the brink of tears. Slow down, how did you get trapped? None of the rooms have locks, Monkey explained as he walked down the corridor, trying to locate the room Shi Ling was in through the sound of her voice. I also don't know. After I ran in to hide, I was unable to open it anymore. And this room is different from others. There are 2 dolls sitting right in the middle of the room, side by side. Sitting? The mention of dolls made Monkey's hair rise. If he did not see another doll in his life ever again, he would be satisfied. Please come and get me. Shi Ling's voice turned shrill. From the sound of it, her sanity was fraying. I'll be there in a moment. Just get as far away from the dolls as you can for now and listen to what He-san said earlier. Do not touch anything in the room. I suspect those dolls... Monkey halted mid-sentence because he suddenly realized that there was a rag doll blocking his path, lying on the floor about half a meter away from his feet. Resisting the urge to scream and toss the phone at the doll, Monkey took cautious steps toward it. Long hair with an expression of guilt and self-reparation, different from the doll on the staircase. This one looks much mature in age. After he thought that, Monkey's eyes widened. What on earth? How did I manage to read so many emotions from a mere doll? Is this fear talking, or are the dolls too authentic? For some reason, I feel like they're like human beings with real emotions. In any case, now is not the time to think about that. As long as the doll before me is not the one I saw on the stairs, then everything is fine. At least this proves that the dolls don't know how to move on their own. Things aren't as bad as I imagine. Focus. The most crucial mission now is to rescue Shi. Monkey shook his head violently, trying to steady his mind. He cheered himself on. I'm merely scaring myself. If the doll from the staircase was indeed following me, she would not have appeared in front of me, right? She should be behind me. This is merely a trick by the boss. There's no need to be afraid. To convince himself, Monkey turned to look behind him. See, there's nothing. Monkey's eyes zeroed in on a spot about 1 meter behind him, and the rest of his sentence was forcefully cut off. There it was, a rag doll lying quietly on the floor.